Welcome to the Universe Effect, where Shane's in timeout for questioning my authority. Today, with special guest Jason, we discuss the evolution of language.
Hey guys.
Hi.
That's Jason.
Pleasure to have you on the show, Jason.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know in the past you've been very involved with German, and you started to learn, what was the other one? Or was that Shane who was trying to learn Persian?
Shane was trying to learn
Persian and
Persian and he told me a little bit, but I kind of got nothing out of it because it's hard. And not like German at all.
So you study it a lot in your free time.
German, yes.
Yeah,
Not Persian. I don't do Persian.
So I think today we should, I have a couple questions on the evolution of just general language.
Alright.
So maybe you or Timmy can help me out with these questions after doing some research. So
Fair note, I don't know that much about language in general. I can tell you a decent amount about German, but I could make some assumptions about other languages, but by no means do I actually know what I'm talking about.
all right, well, some of my questions relate to, so you, by your knowledge of conjugates and similar things to the English language and other language will help with some of my questions. First question. Was language invented in Africa before the first humans split up, or did they separately develop their own complex language? And is language an unavoidable product of evolution?
Well, the last part of that question with the is it part of evolution, I'm thinking some type of communication is generally part of evolution because we could see animals making sounds to communicate with each other.
Elephants actually have, there's a whole elephant dictionary.
Is there?
Yeah, they have different noises for that mean different things.
Huh, that's interesting.
There's a whole website that you can use, and it gives you the sounds and what it means.
Huh.
There's a difference between communication and language, because a lot of people say that language, some of the things that define language and make it unique to humans is that we use grammar, which the only other animal that I can think of that uses grammar is dolphins.
Right.
So, because they're actually pretty intelligent. But another thing that they don't do is they don't have a language that can be used to interpret an infinite amount of ideas. So, our language allows us to have an infinite amount of things we can express.
Well,
for the most part,
a very high number.
we can just keep inventing words with our letters and just continue and have an infinite amount, right?
Well, eventually we'd have to come up with new letters. Have you ever heard of the Library of Babel?
I think I have heard of that. I think you told me about that at one point.
Do you want to refresh our memory?
Yeah, it's a website, actually, that uses an algorithm, and it contains every single possible arrangement of letters and spaces and periods that could ever exist. So it contains everything that ever has been said, will be said, or
will ever be said.
Huh. So does it generate it, or does it have it stored?
It doesn't have it stored. What it does is it uses a system. I forget what the system is, but it just goes through a different assortment of letters, and what it does is when you can search for something, or you could go and actually look through the pages of everything that they have, but it uses whatever you search for, and it puts it into the algorithm they have, and it spits out all these different pages of everything that it's contained in.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like the idea that if we have an infinite amount of letters, letter combinations, will eventually that infinite amount of letter combinations will contain everything that we will ever think of, or everything that we can think of, or say, or do.
Exactly.
Is it that? Yeah, I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's like if you have a monkey at a typewriter, eventually it's gonna come up with Shakespeare.
Right. So
eventually.
Another thing is, so we have a common ancestor in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that mean we had language in Africa, we were talking to each other, and then we kind of like split up and developed different tongues and different words for things that we hadn't thought of before, and that's why we have different languages, or?
Maybe. I'm not sure, because there's no way to really prove that we had some sort of spoken language before, like, before, I don't know, Mesopotamia or something, like, that's what I'm thinking, like, first civilization, they probably had some sort of language, but I'm not sure of anything before that.
Yeah, because it would be kind of weird that all languages developed individually with, like, different grammars and stuff, unless it's, like I said before, an unavoidable product of evolution. That's kind of the dilemma, so...
Language changing would probably be unavoidable, but I'm not sure language itself is unavoidable.
Well,
by humans, though?
Another thing is, as humans, every single... Well, maybe not every single, but there are a very high amount of ways that we can communicate with each other. There's... we vocally communicate, there's physical, sign language, or even just facial expressions, we can understand that. There's Morse code, which just uses, it's just a series of taps, and it seems like if we need a way to communicate, we just make it.
Right.
Right.
So it's probably just another method of trying to communicate, because I believe, like, communication would be some sort of unavoidable product of evolution, but not, like, spoken language itself, because, again, animals are able to understand each other, and it's not necessarily spoken language like anything the humans can replicate, if you know what I mean. I don't think that's the right word.
Another thing is, we have vocal cords and enough intelligence that we can create the languages and things like that, but also vocal cords seem to be the most specific and easiest way to convey our ideas, because parrots can they can talk, but they don't really know what they're saying. It's just mimicry.
Right.
So you're saying, like, language is just mimicking other people saying stuff?
Well, it is, but what I'm saying is you need, in order for, I think that since, for us, vocal communication is the easiest way for us to communicate, so it's a mix of whatever's easiest to convey your ideas and also the level of intelligence.
Right.
Alright.
Okay, that does make sense.
So, something I found online that was kind of neat, just kind of like a fact. Things that we use, words that we use for, that don't have any meaning, that we use a lot, like, and so, what I'm saying, I'm trying to get my point across by using actual grammar, which is hard.
American English, I think it's forgivable.
Basically, Google crutch words.
Okay.
They're just words that you use that aren't needed.
Like flavoring up a sentence, but you could still get the same point across by taking the words out.
It doesn't even flavor up a sentence. Like,
oh, really? Okay. Oh, I'm thinking something else.
If you say like too much...
Like, if you say like too much, it's like meaningless. The sentence is like so meaningless.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm like saying, you know? Like.
Like, so you guess that, I think, what?
Too.
Yeah, like.
I think...
I get what you mean.
I think it's just, a place filler for while we're trying to convey...
Come up with what we're trying to
say, yeah.
Right.
Same, like...
So, like,
Like and and...
basically.
Yeah. It seems like it's just easy for us to put a word there rather than just sit in silence while we try to
Probably
think
a
of the
social
best
thing,
way.
so it's like you don't have an awkward silence while you were like in the middle of a thought or something.
Right. So, I think that kind of proves that language is not just a form of communication, it's also a culture.
Yeah. Well,
I could see that.
yeah, at least, with... I'm just going to use sign language as an example. Sign language, it has its own culture. There's deaf culture, it's centered around emotions and facial expressions. And there's different things that can and can't be done. And sign language was just created so that people who couldn't speak or couldn't hear could communicate with other people. And it's not really like it just developed on its own. Like people figured out that we need a way to communicate, and that's why. But there's still like a cultural aspect to it. For example, do you know what I forget what the name of it? It's a sign name or a symbol name or something like that. They use a specific sign but changed it a little bit for a person's name because it's easier than spelling it out. But
Oh yeah, like a symbol, like if you were kind of like the like Mandarin, I think, uses that kind of logic, like draw a picture for an object instead of like creating letters.
And that was made out of necessity because you don't want to have to spell the person's name out every time you want to say something to them.
Right.
But
you're taking a sign language class, right?
Yes, I am actually.
So how is that? Like, is it weird to try and like learn a whole different language?
It's definitely interesting because specifically the wording is different. Like the placement of the words is different because like if you wanted to say where is Jason, you'd like have to say Jason and specify he's a person, and then you just use the sign for where. So it'd just be like saying Jason person where. So it's actually very difficult for people who interpret.
Oh yeah. So does it use grammar like am and is and stuff like that? Well, is a verb, so
is am.
Probably am's a verb?
I am. It's a conjugation of a
is.
verb. I am, you are, he, she, it is.
Wow. I feel stupid.
Do you not take English anymore?
Not anymore, no.
Seriously?
No, I do. I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say.
I have it next semester.
Oh, right. That's weird. But back on topic.
Oh, okay. So also a big part of like the class is teaching, because it's like an intro class. It's teaching about deaf culture and what I was talking about before with the sign names. Only a deaf person is allowed to give you your sign name, and it's seen as offensive if someone who can hear and speak just comes up with a sign name for you.
What if they speak sign language? Or not speak sign language, oh my gosh, I am losing it. We are doing this later, and this is Timmy's fault. I'm blaming Timmy for this.
Alright, I take full responsibility.
So you're in timeout next episode.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll bring Shane in and put you out.
I mean, I get to come back?
Yeah, you can come back.
Yes.
Oh. Whenever you want, you're welcome.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, yeah.
How about...
someone that...
Continue what your thought, Timmy.
So, even if there's a person that's fluent in sign language and interprets or anything, they're not allowed to give you a sign name. It has to be someone that is either deaf or mute.
Huh.
And it's just like it's a cultural thing, but it stems from something we created out of a necessity to communicate with people who can't hear or speak.
Huh.
So it's like... It's a side effect of creating a new language.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that cultural, like, thing where you might have something different than in your native language. Like, for instance, the thing I think of is in some languages, I know German for one and Vietnamese for another, if you're talking to someone, you'd use, like, a different pronoun depending on, like, if the person's, like, older than you, if they're a figure of authority, etc., you know what I mean?
Right, like a respect thing.
Yeah, so is it like that?
Sort of. They don't have different words for respect, or, well, not words, but signs for, like, different things of respect. Like, the sign for boy is different for the sign for man, but that's more of, like, a specific thing.
That's an age type of thing.
Yeah, that's like an age.
It's more of sign language is about descriptiveness and trying to imagine. Like, a lot of sign language is spatial, where, like, you specify this area to your left is this one person, and then the area to your right is a different person, or even you designate different fingers on your hand to be different people or different things.
Oh. Huh.
So it's more visual, and it helps to give the person that you're trying to communicate with a better idea of how everything's laid out.
I think this also might be a side effect of overall communication.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I text Timmy, or anyone for that matter, I'm not going to spell things correctly because I don't want to, and it's funny, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
It's totally...
Most people are like that, but I know some people who have to be completely grammatically correct in a text.
Right, but...
Which is kind of funny.
It's like a totally different culture when you're texting someone. Say you have emojis, you have GIFs, you know? Or GIFs. Depending on who you are.
I definitely use tons of reaction pictures or things like that.
Oh, yeah, I do too. It's so much fun.
It seems like it's just...
Supernatural?
Yeah.
Supernatural GIFs?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Jason is a supernatural GIF...
Addict?
Addict, yeah.
I've never seen Supernatural. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
What is Supernatural? Is that a type of food?
But it seems like using someone else's facial emotions helps you convey your own.
Right.
Yeah, it's like trying to
make up for the lack of face-to-face contact when you're texting.
Right.
Or at least that's my thought.
Yeah.
But it's just like a different type of culture.
Right.
Communication could be like the internet. The internet has its own culture, obviously.
Don't we all know that?
Yeah, a very colorful one, too.
Really. But it's also like, I mean, I'm not very well versed in social interaction between us young people, but I know there's specific things that you're not supposed to do when you text or like
adding an
like
extra Y when you say hey.
Yes, they
Exactly
mean different
like that.
things, but it's like its own culture that just forms itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a side effect
of.
of. It's like a side effect of communication.
I think like the internet definitely is just amplifying anything that could possibly become its own culture. Like, if you just have any of you guys remember a while ago there was the Twitch Plays Pokemon thing?
Oh yeah.
Where it was just a group of people that played a single game of Pokemon
Oh
together.
yeah, I do remember that.
But
What
just
do you mean,
around
group of
that,
people? It was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people putting in
Still a
commands at the
group.
same time, and it was completely crazy.
But through that, a mythology was created of it with like the Lord Helix and Bird Jesus and
yeah, oh my god. Yeah, but that's just people trying to be funny, but then it actually catches on. It catches on very well. I mean, things spread like wildfire over the internet if it's popular enough.
But it's like all these different ideas just came together, and it's just one accepted canon thing of what happened. Like the names and everything.
Right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's totally
It is interesting.
awesome. And you never think about it until you like try and break it down, into
Right.
its most fundamental parts and like try and define them.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of the greatest parts of this podcast. We can break things down and like find fundamental parts, even though
Or we
we
can
have
try, at
no
least.
clue what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
absolutely accurate.
So, how about other questions relating to the evolution of language?
Here's something.
I
What about-
sometimes wonder how you could have, like, for example, like, Germany and France border each other, and then Germany and Poland border each other, and then you have French, German, and Polish, obviously. And how those three languages could be so different from one another, and yet the countries are right there. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
'Cause, I mean,
Maybe.
I'm not multilingual by any means, but I know for a fact that the German word for I is spelled ICH, pronounced ich, and then the French word for I, spelled JE, is pronounced je, and I have no idea, like, how you could have two completely, like, different words with two countries right next to each other. The people had to have talked to each other at some point.
Well, I think
Right.
a lot of it is nationalism, where people take pride in where they're from, and Germany was I have no idea, but what way back, what was Germany politically? Like, was it an empire?
At some point it was an empire. I think there was an empire that either encompassed Germany or was, like, actually, like, centered around Germany. Let me look it up, actually. Give me a sec.
But either way, it was all under one leader, and it's that sense of pride of where you're from and what you stand for, that you don't want to talk like people that sometimes you compete with for resources.
That's a good point, actually.
So you try and differentiate yourself and push away from other cultures because of ethnocentrism.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
It's like India. India, the single country, has hundreds of different languages for the different areas.
Right. I remember. That was an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
I
also
also-
really interesting because all the people there are at least, like, bilingual, because everyone
Yeah.
speaks so many languages, so you
You
just
have
pick it
to
up,
be.
which I find really cool.
Yeah.
Actually, I was doing some research earlier today and about bilingual people, and they have more gray matter in their brains
Really?
for some reason. And like even people who take up the language later in life. And I don't know, like in my screwed up mind, it's like, how can you know all of this stuff and it still doesn't take up your memory or anything? Like, is it just naturally, like, you don't even think about it? You don't even have to remember it. It's just,
Might completely
Automatic,
depend on
like-
the person, though, I mean.
like, I just
know what I
don't
mean?
know how you could have two different words for the same word, the same object. It just boggles, it blows my mind that people can do that, like you, Jason, even though you're not, like, completely
I'm
fluent.
nowhere near fluent in German, but I was going to bring up my story. When I got my wisdom teeth out, I woke up and English is my first language, but I spoke German instead of English. I don't know what happened in my head that it was subconscious. Maybe it was the medicine I was on. I don't know, but for a good solid 2 to 5 minutes, I didn't speak English. I couldn't remember how to speak English, and I kept yelling in German.
Right. That, I've heard stories about people who have, like, traumatic injuries to their brain, and language that they've studied or, like, been around for a while just all of a sudden became, like, fluent for them. It's probably not the same thing, but it sounds like it's somewhat similar because you're not in the right frame of mind when you have those drugs.
Right.
Well,
But I don't know, it might be similar.
did you remember it?
Remember what exactly?
Like, waking up and not being able to speak English?
I woke up and I could vaguely remember asking the people around me why I couldn't speak English and why I had this weird feeling in my mouth. And that's all I remember. And then when I started talking like bits of English, and then it started coming back to me, and I was like really happy that I was able to remember how to speak English. So I mean, that was probably the whatever they put me on for the surgery, but I mean, it's still interesting that German was the go-to instead of English.
Right, exactly. It's like, what happens there? There's something weird going on.
Yeah.
But all I can say is I wish I was there, or have a video of it, because that sounds like the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
here's,
it probably was.
I have an article up. There was an Australian man who woke up from a coma and was able to speak fluent Chinese, but he couldn't remember English.
Right, yeah.
And he
like
has
weeks
never
later, he
spoken Mandarin before.
Yeah. I heard about one guy, I don't know who he is, it was a while ago, but he woke up, couldn't speak English or whatever his first language was, and then he could speak whatever language, I don't even remember, German or whatever, and then weeks later, he finally regained English, and he could speak both.
Huh.
And I don't know, maybe there's just like one trigger that you need to press.
A lot of
and it's
a big part of it is early development. It's the first 3 years is the molding time, where if you want your kid to be multilingual, you have to teach them before they're 3 for it to really stick.
Right, but there are people who do learn it when they're in their teen or
some people are just
adult.
like, I guess their brains are just made to remember, for lack of a better term. I'm not really good with how the brain works and everything. Because I mean,
also go ahead.
What were you saying?
I was gonna say it also a big part of it is how much time you commit to it, and because a lot of it's just memorization.
Right. I don't commit that much time to learning German though, but it just sticks with me. I don't know how it does, it just does.
Yeah.
But I know people that dedicate a decent amount of time to learning whatever grammar or vocabulary we went over, and it just doesn't stick with them as easily. I don't know, because I think our brains are just wired differently, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we've been going for 27 minutes.
We have.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Any last thoughts?
Everything I was wondering what has been discussed, so...
Yeah.
Jason, anything you wanted to bring up, or Timmy?
I don't want to go too far over the time. I had another point, but I mean, we could save it for a later episode or something.
You can make it, if we have 20 seconds, you can go ahead.
20
God,
seconds.
no, not 20 seconds.
If you want to go more in depth, we could save it.
Yeah, we could.
Right.
We could probably. I could probably go more in depth about actual differences in vocabulary and grammar and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what we could do is Jason could give his point, and if anyone who wants to try and discuss it can do it in the comments. So Jason, go ahead.
Idea. Well, I was wondering, Dutch and German, they're both very similar languages, even derived from the same languages. They're in the same branch and everything of the Indo-European tree, but they still have drastically different words for some things. So I was wondering what would cause that, because if you have the same roots for a language, how you could come up with such different words and such different pronunciations and stuff like that. Maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you made it through these 28 minutes, hash it out in the comments, please. That would be great.
Hash it out.
Oh, also, before we end, I should probably make it very clear. I just took a community class, an intro to sign language community class, and by no means do I know very much about sign language, and I could very well be wrong about anything I said.
Yeah, me too, with the other stuff I was saying about languages. I've taken German for 2 years, and I don't know too much. I'm decent with grammar, but my vocabulary is bad, and I only know English.
More like 3 years.
3? 2,
Yeah.
3-ish years?
Have it, let's say 3 1/4.
Okay, 3 1/4. I'm not good with this kind of memory stuff. I cannot estimate time for the life of me.
You can memorize German, but you can't memorize a few numbers.
Exactly.
Alright.
Alright, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah.
I'm JP.
I'm Timmy.
I'm Jason.
and
Play us out,
join
Keyboard
us
Cat.
next month. What?
Play us out, Keyboard Cat. It was a joke, never mind.
Okay.
Alright, if you got that joke, please like and subscribe.
Alright, see you guys.
See ya, thanks, bye.